We have another important topic to discuss in detail, like working in confined spaces. But before we discuss anything from NEBOSH side, we truly need to discuss what is a confined space, how it looks like, what are the examples of confined spaces, what kind of system must be there in place to keep our employees safe and make sure these restricted areas or prohibited areas or the line of fire or the danger zone areas are not approached or accessed by unauthorized irrelevant persons. Even the relevant persons can't approach without proper permissions or kind of permits. So anybody want to share what is a confined space? Any one of you, please, if you have little bit more energy to discuss, because I know it's near to the end of the session, so I'm expecting some more energy from all of you. What is a confined space? Anyone voluntarily want to share, please? What is a confined space?
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam, Mr. Fawaz.
Yes, confined space, any place that's not designed and competent for human to stay and like a vessel or tank, or excavation deeper than 1.2.
1.2, excellent, mashallah.
That place have a limit of oxygen breathing, So it's not designed for human to stay.
Absolutely.
So there is a many kind of many samples of confined space. It's required inspection. It's required gas monitoring.
Excellent, mashallah.
And oxygen monitoring. Oxygen monitoring. Not less than 19.5 and more than 23.5, and ventilation required, lighting, what from the worker. From the worker, there is need to be trained of confined space. A lot of requirements.
That means several hazards are there.
Permit with, yes, several hazard, several hazard, and that's available.
And for each hazard, surely we need a control plan, in place. That is why we have CSC plan, confined space entry plan, actually, and we identify all the hazards and we definitely plan in advance proactively. We discuss and evaluate all the possibilities, what can go wrong, and how we need to prevent. Because before you start your project, it's much better proactive approach to follow rather than going inside and then you're gonna observe or something is bad or you need SCABA or you need the right set of PPs or the tools are not good enough or the housekeeping is very terrible there, whatever. So before you go inside, you have to identify all the hazards and accordingly your CSC plan should work and it should be part of your work permit system. Excellent, Mr. Fawaz. Thank you very much for your great contribution, mashallah. So any place, including any chamber, tank, vat, silo or pit or trench, pipe, sewer or flue or even a well or other similar space in which by virtue of its enclosed nature, there arises a reasonably foreseeable specific risk. Take an example of manhole. What can go wrong? What kind of risk gonna be there? Fire or exploit? And I always mention it's hard to get second chance. Several incidents happened. The person, they just completed their spray painting and later on the other guys came and they started smoking or plugging their electrical connection. So plenty of things happened, just because of poor knowledge or maybe not following the safety regulations relevant to confined spaces. Now, loss of consciousness from the gas and fumes, vapors, lack of oxygen, drowning like asphyxiation, entrapment in free flowing solid, or even the loss of consciousness from increased body temperature. Factors to be assessed: the general condition, like Mr. Fawaz mentioned, the contamination or oxygen deficiency and enrichment or physical dimensions or previous contents even, or the kind of residues, any sort of energy there. Hazards arising from the work could be cleaning chemicals, sources of ignition, increasing temperature, or hazards from the outside. So it's not like only inside. Even the outside hazards should also be evaluated and observed and identified, like ingress of substances or emergency rescue. And emergency rescue is one of the most difficult activity, especially in confined space. Rescue in a confined space is not easy at all. Safe system of work for entry: do not work inside a confined space if possible. That is the best strategy. Otherwise, carry out a risk assessment, develop safe system of work, like all kind of procedures, SOPs, develop emergency arrangements, and also use permit to work system, and make sure you only uh, get the trained competent personnel to be involved in any kind of project in a confined space. What is safe system of work for entry? We required a supervision, the right set of competency, the communication, atmospheric testing, like Mr. Fawaz also mentioned, the authorized gas testing should be there, and ventilation could be mechanical, could be inbuilt in the design, removal of residues and isolation lock off if feeds and out feeds. But make sure for confined space isolation, only disconnection and blinding. These are the best safest methods. I repeat again, for confined space isolation, disconnection, like disconnection of pipelines or something like that, or the blinding. But blinding, make sure the rating capacity is good enough, the location you are familiar with, the size is perfectly accurate, and then and also this blind is not facility made or locally fabricated. If it is locally fabricated, then make sure you are using it only one time and then you have to destroy it. Otherwise, make sure the blinds are purchased from a globally recognized supplier along with the right spec of materials. Isolation lock-off of electrical mechanical hazards. We can use lockout tagger, PPs, excess egress, fire prevention, lighting, suitability of individual emergency rescue procedures. And this safe system of work for entry, you can consider the important elements as a CSC planning, confined space entry planning. So all these points also should be part of your planning actually. So ultimately, what we want is, we don't want to see any accident or any sort of incident in the confined space. We don't want to kill our people. We don't want to damage our goodwill. We don't want to create any damage to the nearby community, even to the neighbor companies. That is why proactively we have to design a system, especially the work permit system, and incorporate all these elements as part of our work permit system, to keep our employees safe, the assets of the company, the environment, and the business itself.